Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to do something just a little bit different. We're getting a whole heap of new characters come into the game at the moment, so I thought I'd put together my own little wish list of characters that I would like to see in the game. So today I'm going to focus on the light side and give you my top 10 characters that I would like to see in my collection at some stage. And I'm going to kick it off with King Theoden. Now, the Rohan faction has been quite useful in the early part of the game, but players aren't farming all 5 characters because there are some weaknesses there. We do get a lot of Eowyn leads with Eomer and Eothane in the arena as the base part of most people's teams at the moment. So bringing in someone like Theoden with a totally different leadership ability might encourage players to use a full Rohan team and really change up that dynamic in the game. Coming in at number 9 is Isildor. Before he got the ring, he fought in many battles against Sauron and his minions, and I'd like to see a whole scenario of how that Second Age war really panned out, and maybe even a what if scenario if Isildor had have destroyed the ring and what kind of king he might have been able to become. Coming in at number 8 is Gilgal, one of the greatest elven warriors who did perish in the War of the Ring against Sauron. But honestly, I just want to see him swinging that glaive around, massive AoE attacks. But here's someone they could bring in down the track. Once the current elf meta is long forgotten, he could come in and really refresh those elves and give us a second use out of some of those other characters. But I just think he would be a really interesting character to have in the game. Speaking of elves, coming in at number 7 is Thralluel. Yes, that's right, Daddy Legolas, another fine elf warrior. But the hatred that he had for the dwarves could actually bring in another kind of dynamic rather than having synergy against the shadow forces, maybe even having some synergy against the dwarves. Because I think at some point there's a lot of potential in the dwarves to be quite a strong meta in the game. He could be someone that they could bring in to try and shut that down at a later point. Speaking of people that hate the dwarves, another character that makes my list at number 6 is Beorn. And the reason that I've got him on this list is just think of the dynamic that they could try and bring in, because he can change into a giant bear during battle. This could really change the way that they introduce different movesets into the game, so later down the track, once they've got a bigger foundation for the game and they can try something a little left of center, as a man he would obviously have some abilities, and then as a bear a completely different moveset. This could really change your strategy in battle when you're going up against an opposition, or if he was on the opposition team, it might force you to adjust the way that you approach that team in attack to try and take each member down. So from a strategy point of view, it could really change up the way that we approach our characters moving forward from that point. Moving into our top 5, and I've chosen another one from The Hobbit to make an appearance in Heroes of Middle-earth, and that person is Bard. Now down the track, if they do end up having a raid that has anything to do with Smaug or something along those lines with Lake Town and the Battle of the Five Armies, Bard would obviously be an integral character to have in that storyline. He is one of my favourite characters from The Hobbit, but it also leaves you open to a few other what-if scenarios. Could you imagine if he missed that shot with the Black Arrow on Smaug? Maybe Smaug retreated back to the mountain. Maybe rather than having the 5 armies go after the dwarves, maybe they have to face Smaug back in the mountain as part of the raid. Now moving on to number 4, and in the number 4 slot, I have put the King of the Dead. Definitely one of the cooler looking characters from Return of the King, but on top of that, not just having the King of the Dead there, but you could also have your own little team of Oathbreakers. It could really lead to a whole new synergy type within a faction that I think could really change up the game a little bit, just to give us something a lot more unique than what we're used to in some of the other factions. But coming in now at number 3, sticking with the undead theme, this guy may have a little bit of a licensing issue getting into the game, but if it can happen, I would love to see it, and that is Talion. Now, if you haven't played the Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War games, do yourself a favor, go and check them out. They are incredibly good, especially Shadow of War. That's going to be one of my favorite games of all time, and Talion's story is so cool, and also having both Ranger and Wraith abilities in one character could set up so many different ways that you could build this guy into the game. He could possibly even have a brand system where he might be able to brand one of the opposition to fight for him and attack one of his own team members, even if it's only for one attack, just so it's not too OP. But it's just another little dynamic that they could add to the game just for something a little bit more unique. Now, coming in at number 2 are actually 2 characters that we get all in the one nice little package, and that would be the Blue Wizards. And yes, that is AI generated art there, so I didn't steal that from anyone else or some little kid that was just trying to draw a couple of wizards. But the thing that really allows these guys to shine in a game like this is the fact that there isn't a lot of information out there on them at all. So CG could really build whatever stories they wanted around them. So any what if scenario that you wanted, you could make up as you went along, and no one could really question you as far as any of the lore is concerned. But because we are so familiar with Gandalf and Saruman, as well as Radagast, these 2 guys could bring us a wizard type that we're just completely not used to, so anything is possible around these 2 characters. Now, before I get to my number 1 pick, just know that there are so many more characters that I could have added to this list, and I'm sure that you're probably going to be yelling at the screen going, what about this person? Pop it in the comments. I'd love to hear who you would love to see in the game at some point down the track, because there are so many great light side characters that I'm sure are going to be added to the game at some point. But just to throw a couple of ideas out there just for discussion's sake, I'd love to hear from you guys. So that leads me to my number 1 pick that I would like to see in Heroes of Middle-earth for the light side, and that is of course Galadriel. Because she is so powerful, there are so many things that they could do with her besides just her elven magic. She does have that mirror where she can get glimpses of the future, maybe being able to predict someone's move to avoid them, or even getting into the minds of her opponents to shut them down, stop them from attacking, causing fear. Maybe they just can't move or attack for an entire round. But I see her more as a passive type of character that doesn't have to go up and physically attack someone, but finding other ways to shut down the opposition or even boosting her own team members. But that rounds out my top 10 wish list for the light side. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to comment down below the characters that you want to see in the game as well. But other than that, don't forget, like and sub. You know the deal. We got plenty more Heroes of Middle-earth coming your way. Don't miss out, and I'll catch you in the next one.